informal institutions such as religious, traditionals, politicians, NGOs, vested interests. We don't think they're important while they are. So political economy analysis will, normally open those issues. Political economy analysis is also important because it will deepen our understanding of political context. Whatever that you want to do to influence policy, you need to understand the political structures, the political context, and how it affects programming, such as Rehabilitation 2023. Because addressing unmet needs of rehabilitation, ensuring that rehabilitation becomes an integral aspect of universal health coverage is a very, very serious issue, at hand. Now, it's also important because it will lead us to have more feasible and effective programming, partnerships. We cannot do it alone. We need to develop some partnerships. We need to identify programmatic solutions to our own challenges. No matter what we do in our road to success, there are a lot of influence, there are a lot of barriers. We will encounter a lot of enemies. We'll encounter a lot of those people that are for and against our wish. So how to navigate this issue? How to disentangle them? How to suppress them or work together with them? How do we, match hands with other peoples who are also sharing the interest? It's actually important. Then now, political economy analysis will also help us to develop proactive scenarios planning and risk management. Risk management, because like I said, is very important for all the stakeholders that you work with. You need to identify them. You need to identify their level of influence, identify their level of interest, know whether they are collaborators, whether there are blessings, whether and then how to navigate the terrain. It's also important because it will be used. It can be used to effectively communicate and engage with major stakeholders. Like I said, it will help us to identify who are the drivers of change that we need to partner with to help us address key political challenges and opportunities that we'll encounter. Political economy analysis as a tool can be applied in a various contexts. It can be identified. It can be applied as a country level, sector level, such as health. Like at the moment, and then even at the problem-driven level. At country level, we can apply political economy analysis to analyze, like I said, the influence, to attempt to analyze and influence the structure, the political structures, the political institutions, identifying the actors, identify how they think, what are their own values, what are their own ideals. We can also use it to enhance their general sensitivity, understanding the broader spectrum of political economy environment, to inform country planning processes such as budgetary planning, such as contextual planning, and stuff like that. At sector level, such as like at the Ministry of Health, political economy is very important because it will help us look at issues like what are the political, economic, and social forces that drive or block policy change. Like in the health sector, it can help us identify who are those that are blocking our own effort in ensuring that rehabilitation become part and parcel of universal health coverage. Now, who are those for and against us? Because understanding this is extremely important because it will help us determine the dynamics of the sector. Who are the political actors in the Ministry of Health, for example? How do they think? Or the Ministry of, let's say, Planning, because that's where some of the policy, changes are made. How do they think? What is their level of ideals? What is their level of thinking? We can also identify barriers and opportunities within a particular sector. We can x-ray each of the sectors that are our stakeholders, for example, health, education, for example, Ministry of Budget and Planning, Ministry of, all this. We can identify and x-ray them to identify barriers and opportunities within.
Please go, sir. I think he's having network problem.
Are you still there, sir? We can't hear you anymore.
He seems to be logged off.
I think he's
Okay, I
off.
guess the network pushed him off. Oh
Yeah.
my
Yeah,
God.
he complained earlier about network in his area. I guess he's
Oh
been
my
locked off
God.
now.
Okay, we'll wait for him to come on board. Come back. I think that's what we'll do.
Let's just give him some minutes. I think his network is bad. He'll soon join in.
Extremely, very, very disappointed. Forgive me, please. Let's continue. There are a lot of political economy tools that can be utilized. I mean, can you go to the next slide? Sorry, there. Yeah, there are a lot of tools that can be applied either at the country level, like at sectoral level, like I said, or at the problem-driven analysis. Those that I've shared there are some of the examples of the World Bank, political economy tools. But then the focus of these tools are essentially one, it look at structural factors, looking at what are the conditions that influence the state and political system, including geographical, historical, of the idea in question. You can it also look at the institutions. It looks at both formal and informal institutions. What roles governs them? What laws are there? How are policies identified? It also look at the informal institution and how they interact to produce, a given result. Because within the system, if you're talking about policy, it's not only formal institutions that have a stake. You also need to identify informal institution and how they, interact with people in power and authority to produce, to influence a given problem. At the institutional level, also, it helps in identifying gaps and challenges related to laws, policies, and institutional framework. Now, the focus of these tools is also one about the stakeholder analysis. You cannot do political economy analysis without identifying your own stakeholders. So individuals in the organization who are relevant, who can influence the agenda that you have in question, is extremely important. Who are the stakeholders that can influence, for example, the Rehabilitation 2030 agenda? Who are they? What are the formal and informal roles and mandates of the different players? What are their own roles and responsibilities? How can they influence that? The tools analyzes that. It also helps in analyzing what are the balance between the central and local authorities in the provision of services. Now, the political economy tools also, the framework also look at the power relations. To what extent is power vested in the hand of specific individuals? Who are the people within the formal and informal structures that have influence or interest? How do you identify them? How do you then, because identifying them is extremely important, only you identify them, you identify their influence, their interest, only then you can engage effectively. And how the different interest groups outside the government seek to influence policy. Because there are other institutions also, there are other vested interests outside the government that have, an influence or that can influence the agenda that we have in question. We also look at some of the historical legacies and the incentives that you can have. No, in other words, the iceberg phenomenon. Next slide, sorry, is that what it wants to say is that it's just making sure that all that you see in trying to implement policy, the whole issue that you see, the people that you think are interested, people that you think are having the interest or the influence or whatever, are only the tip of the iceberg. It is only when you do political economy analysis that you will identify the actual people with power, that you can identify real people who are interested in the policy agenda that you want to drive. It is only also when you do the political economy analysis that you can identify clearly which resources that are you going to utilize to ensure that the mandate or the dreams or the goals that you want to have for the rehabilitation is achieved. It's also only when you do political economy analysis that you can identify which incentives do you need to use, and how are you going to use that incentive effectively. Not doing political economy analysis is the reason why most times we advocate for a policy change without seeing without any commensurate result. It is only because most of the things that we see, people with power, with interest, the resources, we are only seeing the tip of the iceberg. The bigger iceberg can only be seen if we identify political economy analysis. So designing political economy analysis in program planning like Rehabilitation 2030 agenda requires us, like I said, one, to do some stakeholder mapping, to map the stakeholder, very, very important. If you map the stakeholders, you also analyze the stakeholders, like I said, to identify their influence and interest. It is also it can also help you to do, the mapping the political economy to map who are the people and the structures within the formal and informal settings. You also look at the contextual pressures. What are the barriers to change? How can you actually influence people? What are the steps to change? And then you use the appropriate tool. And at the end of the day, also you keep monitoring and evaluating. Next slide. Now, how do I engage with stakeholders? Is one of the hallmark of political economy analysis. Sorry, I'm being a bit fast, like I said, because of time. Sorry. Next slide. Continue, Dara. Next slide. Now, engaging with effective stakeholder engagement. Next slide, still. Effective stakeholder engagement is the key to achieving any change that is desired. Any goal that is desired, the only way you can achieve that goal is to do effective stakeholder engagement. Without that, you actually fail. And a lot of people feel that they are doing stakeholder engagement because they don't understand what is at stake. Now, only political economy analysis, like I said, can unearth all those issues. Now, we all know what is stakeholder. Next slide, Dara. Next, I have passed that. So, stakeholder engagement can be broadly defined as, as efforts made to understand and involve stakeholders and their concerns in the activities and decision making of an organization or group. The whole idea of ensuring rehabilitation into primary healthcare, the idea of including rehabilitation into universal health agenda can only be possible if we involve all the stakeholders that are having concern. Because it's not only us in the rehabilitation that are having concern. There are other people, religious, traditional, like I said, NGOs, CBOs, government itself, so many that are having interest in that issue. Now, so stakeholders have the right to be involved in the decision making. Rather than set the list of activities, we have to ensure that we effectively engage stakeholders, and these stakeholders can include, like I said, even people in the local communities, individual, within a formal and informal representation. There could be civil society, there could be politicians. A lot of them are even, religious leaders. Others are even in the academia, or some are even business entrepreneurs, and all these are stakeholders that need to be involved in this. Now, doing it alone will not actually fetch us any good, and this is why I think I'm putting forward this idea so that we understand how we engage. To be honest with you, if you do not understand the politics of healthcare, if you don't understand how to do effective stakeholder engagement, in the next 50 years or so, it will be very difficult for us to achieve our aim. Next slide. Past that. Sorry, I'm being a bit. Stakeholder engagement is about building and maintaining constructive relationship over time. It's not an issue. It's not about building relationship once. No, it's not once and for all building of a relationship. It's about building and maintaining constructive relationship over time. And we also have to know that stakeholder engagement is ongoing. It doesn't stop, and it extends throughout the life or throughout the whole process of ensuring that these engagement happen. We have to ensure that at each step that we are engaging with these stakeholders, we have a very good relationship with them that, for a very long period of time. It is also about creating a process that provides opportunities for stakeholders to express their views and concerns. It's only when stakeholders are engaged, it's only through that they can view their concerns, that they can express their views and their concerns, which can be taken into consideration. A lot of the time we engage without having the views expressed by other stakeholders, and the views that may be expressed by other stakeholders, not from us, might be the genuine one, which will help us navigate through the terrain. So not doing that is actually why we are still failing in most of the advocacy or engagement effort that we are doing. Next slide, sorry, I passed that. Go to the next two slides. So there are steps in stakeholder analysis. Like I said, before you do the engagement, we also have to do stakeholder analysis. One, you have to identify the list of stakeholder groups that are interested in this reform agenda. What is the reform agenda in question is, okay, inclusion of rehabilitation into universal health coverage, inclusion of, let's say, rehabilitation into primary health care, addressing the unmet needs of rehabilitation. This is the reform objective that we want to achieve. So we have to now create the list of the stakeholders. All the stakeholders need to be identified and listed. And after that, we do a survey of stakeholders to obtain their own general view and insights. Without understanding the views of rehabilitation from people in the academia, for example, people in the business sector, people in the NGOs, people with the traditional or religious institutions, people from, everyone from the government. Without doing that, it is going to be very difficult for us to achieve our aim. So once we identify them, we have to do a survey to understand their views about the policy reform or agenda that we have, and what are their insights. And after that, we analyze the survey findings so that, like I said, we identify power and potential roles. It's only through that we'll identify what are the what are the barriers to our reforms, who are opposing our reforms, who are the influences of our reforms. Can only do that. We can only achieve that if we analyze the survey findings. So after analyzing the survey findings, then we map and categorize key stakeholders. Why is this important? Is because not stakeholders are not the same. That you have primary stakeholders, you have secondary, and sometimes even tertiary stakeholders. So you classify your stakeholders as primary, secondary, as the case may be. Primary stakeholders are those stakeholders, or even key stakeholders. Sorry, key stakeholders are those with significant influence in the reform agenda. These are people that can significantly affect our own reform agenda of ensuring that rehabilitation become part and parcel of universal health coverage, part and parcel of primary health care, so that we address the unmet needs of. So we have to identify who are the key stakeholders. So you see, and they are critical to the reforms. Key stakeholders can determine success or failure of the reform agenda. And after that, also we identify among the list who are the primary stakeholders. Primary stakeholders are those who are directly affected by the reform, either positively or negatively. If we include, in your effort to ensure that rehabilitation become part and parcel of universal health coverage, who are those among the stakeholders that they may feel positively or negatively affected? Maybe in terms of, professional, bigotry or whatever. You also have to map that. Through that analysis, you can identify this. And then the secondary stakeholders are those with the stake or interest. They have an interest in the reform agenda, but they may not be directly affected, but they have an interest in the activities. For example, yes, you want to ensure rehabilitation becomes part of the universal health coverage. So secondary stakeholders are those, yes, they're interested, but they may not be directly affected. So it's also important you map this, you identify this. Now, identifying this is very, very important, because once you categorize your own stakeholders, engagement differs. In the past, what we do is that we spend a lot of time sometimes treating secondary stakeholders as key stakeholders. If you make a mistake of taking, let's say, identifying a stakeholder who is in reality a secondary stakeholder, but you feel that he's a primary stakeholder or key stakeholder you engage in, you will not have a meaningful result. And there are times when you have people who are key stakeholders who can determine success or failure of the reform agenda that you have, but unfortunately, you don't treat them as such. Sometimes you treat them as either secondary or or primary or secondary stakeholders, and then you have a problem. Now, engagement is very important, and this is the rate limiting step of all the success or failure of any policy reform agenda that we know. Because if you miss this step, you will actually never get it done. So stakeholder identification analysis is extremely important. So immediately after, like I said, you identify them, you do a survey, you analyze them, you now know who are your key stakeholders, who are your primary or secondary stakeholders. Then you now, ask some questions which are pertinent. Now, who are the potential beneficiaries? How can they be affected? Who are likely to be voiceless in this, in this effort of reform agenda? Who is responsible for intended plans? Who has the money, skills, or information? Whose behavior that we need to change? This is extremely important. Sorry, next 3 slides. Sorry, there. I think yeah, I wish the network so that I can be projecting myself. Next 3 slides to the diagram there, where it's showing the stakeholders, that are interested in the issues of interest in question. Where we talk about, let's say, the House of Assembly, consumer group. Yeah, sorry, go back. Consumer group themselves, profit-oriented business people, people in the academia, labor union themselves, even media. There are times when we go back again. Sorry, go back one step. So even media is extremely important. Sometimes we forget that media itself can be a very, very good tool that we need to do, that we need to utilize in this reform agenda. And this is true. If you look at, sorry, can you, yeah, if you look at it, you realize that we don't engage the media for the past 10 years now, less than, for the past 8 years, since the Rehabilitation 2030 has been developed. Tell me, how many times have we engaged the media so that the people out there understand the need for rehabilitation, for people to identify the unmet need for rehabilitation, for people to identify our own effort in ensuring the achievement of the SDG, for them to identify that we can address, we can, also be involved in the, in the achievement of universal health coverage. We don't get to involve these people. How many of the media, whether TV, radio, or print media, has carried this issue? We are not doing that. And this is why we are finding it difficult to achieve, all the beautiful reform agenda that we have at heart. Professional bodies also very important. It's not only, you talk about like NMA, Pharmaceutical Society, nurses, all those professional bodies. How far have we been engaging with them so that we can have allies among them? Even those that that are neutral, how can we now engage them so that we can make them interested in the issue at hand? The NGOs and the CVOs, how many times have we engaged the different NGOs and CVOs available for them to identify, for us to share with them our own, agenda for them so that they buy into our own agenda? How many of those NGOs and CVOs have we engaged? Like I said, with trade unions, have we identified the trade unions, the private sector? They can also be very, very important in this reform agenda. Have we been engaging them? Do we have lobbyists within the academia? Do we have lobbyists within the House of Assembly and consumer group? How many state and local government politicians have we engaged in ensuring that rehabilitation become part and parcel of universal health coverage? So these are all stakeholders that we really have to, sit down, think about, and see how our own engagement can differ. So you see, like I said, so do stakeholder mapping, and then identify the stakeholders. I've dealt on that. Next slide, sorry. Next slide, Dara. I've identified this. Stakeholders are those whose livelihood are directly affected. So primary stakeholders or main stakeholders, key stakeholders can make or mar our own policy agenda. There are people that can affect, and then primary and secondary stakeholders, as the case may be. Next slide again. Now, stakeholder analysis determines stakeholders' disposition towards the change. Next slide, sorry. What is the change? What is the issue that we need to change is inclusion of rehabilitation into the universal health coverage agenda. So you identify this individual, or you identify the stakeholders, like I said, in the identification and analysis of the stakeholder mapping that you do. You determine their own role. What role each of the stakeholders that you identify, you need to identify and determine what role can he play, in making or marring, the policy agenda. And then you score their own involvement. Normally, what we do is we score them from 0 to 5. We score, their own level of involvement. Scoring their own level of their level of involvement and or disposition to change is also very important. And then we also score their level of influence. Through this, we are able to identify the change agents. Like I said, these agents you also identify them within the society, within the informal and formal sector, within the powers and structures that even your own enemy is very important, in the policy agenda, because a person who believes that your success will hurt him is an enemy, but it's also important as part of the stakeholder. You need to map him so that identifying him will make you strategize ways of blocking him. There may be a mentor, a supporter. You need to devise strategies to keep them at bay, or how to neutralize your own enemy. You can never know your enemy in the policy agenda only when you do the political economy analysis. Through political economy analysis, also you will identify who are your non-supporters. These are people who believe that you shouldn't succeed. They are non-supporters. You need to devise strategies to keep them at bay, also, these people, or at least neutralize their own effort. Through political economy analysis, you can also know people who are neutral, to the change, to the policy agenda that you have. A person who shows no preferences, they could be ambivalent, they may have chosen not to display their own feelings, they may not have decided. So these people, what you need to do is to ensure that you gain their own support. You do as much as possible, you engage as much as you can to ensure that you gain their support. Now they are neutral. What do? Engage them continuously so that they become your supporter. And then this takes us to the next level. Who is a supporter? A supporter is a person who prefers, who likes you to succeed, who can provide you with the necessary resources and information so that you are able to succeed. But knowing somebody who is your supporter in political economy analysis is also good, but it has its own implication also. Because if you do not also use engagement strategies to make him continuously be your own supporter, he can actually slip back. Your supporter today can be your enemy or non-supporter tomorrow, or at best be your neutral, be neutral to the policy agenda. You see, so all this now, understanding this change agent can only be possible only when you do political economy analysis. And like I said, through political economy analysis, what we do what is called a 2x2 matrix. Very important. We draw a matrix of a 2x2 across different domains. One of it is power and interest. In the 2x2 analysis, what we do is we map the stakeholders that we identified along the interest and the influence, interest and power matrix. Who are the people with power? You map their own power. So if they have power, now are they interested in the reform agenda? So you see, people who are interested in the reform agenda, but they have low power. What do? These are stakeholders, that you keep satisfied. But there are sometimes your own stakeholders can have, high level power, but then low interest. So this shows these stakeholders of low influence on the activity, but they are having low interest. Show stakeholders who are at low priority and they are likely to focus on your activity. If you engage these stakeholders, you will be wasting your time. You will have some money, draw an advocacy kit, draw an advocacy engagement, spend a lot of money to spend your own time, go and do advocacy. But unfortunately, you might be advocating to the people with low interest in the policy agenda that you have, and then they are also not even powerful at all. But mapping them can also help you to know people who are key players. These people are people who have high interest in the policy agenda, and they also have high influence. So you see, these people, we need to develop good working relationship with them to ensure that effective coalition, so that these people can actually influence policymakers, can influence change agenda, and they can actually help us achieve our own results. There are also people who have high influence, but low interest. So what we do, these people, we keep them informed as much as possible. We continue to engage with them. They are interested, but they are very, they are very powerful. Or sorry, they are very interested in the policy agenda that we have, but they are not powerful. So these people, you keep them informed, because you don't know, tomorrow they may be powerful. If they are powerful tomorrow, already they are interested in the policy agenda, so they will help you achieve your own.
Hello, sir. I think we lost you. Can you hear me, sir? Good evening, everyone. I think his network is acting up again, so just give him some minutes to join in again.
But the house is at full capacity now.
Sorry, this is very disappointing. Forgive me. Very disappointing. I think I would say this is the worst presentation of my entire life, honestly. Forgive me. Let's continue. So next slide. Sorry. Sad. So you see, so knowing, like I said, your own stakeholders, those with high influence, high interest, you collaborate with them. Those with a high, high interest, low influence, you also involve them. You also have those people with, low influence but high interest. You also, these are not supposed to defend against them. So this is very, very important, because identifying this will also help you to identify people who have the potential for threat versus those people, those stakeholders who have the potential for cooperation. Next slide. You see, identifying this is very important, because those people with low level of cooperation, but they have high potential for, high potential for cooperation, but low level for cooperation, but high level for threats. I mean, these are non-supportive, and you have to defend yourself against them. There are people who have the high potential for cooperation, and they have high threat potential. These are people that you need to collaborate with. And those people with low threat potential, but they have high level of cooperation, you involve these people. These are people that can support you throughout your Yeah, but there are people also, like I said, who have low threat potential. They are not a threat anyway in your own policy agenda, but they have low cooperation, the level of cooperation of low. So these people, you monitor them so that you see where they belong one day, because they may move, they may become, I mean, non-supportive of your own domains if you're not careful. So this is it. Now, so the political economy, next slide, sorry, pause that. I'm just trying to, maybe we need to do this presentation sometimes in the future because it's too sad. Yeah, so, so the political economy analysis will also help you identify who is in charge and why, and what are their own interest and power relationships. With regards to technocrats, also applying political economy analysis will also help you identify their own vested interest, and whether they are capable and competent. It's extremely important. And civil society also, what this is saying is that how do you build and demand a good relationship with civil society? How do you curtail, their own relationship? How do you work with them to ensure that the reforms that we look at is actually achieved? Next 3 slides from there, Dara. Now, there are also contextual pressures that we need to identify in any of these engagements that we want to do. Next 3, continue again. Continue again. Next slide. What are the immediate factors that are there that might trigger or might reform is very, very important. We also look at the external pressures. How can pressure for reform be brought to bear? By whom and on whom? And then what we fail to identify sometimes is timing our own, reform agenda. How can reform agenda be timed so that we can overcome resistance? And how to win friends and influence people. Now, all these are what the political economy analysis tries to help us achieve. And there are a lot of tactics that we can use in political economy. One of these is generating and sustaining political will. What arguments and reasons that can we give to persuade those people in power, to see this reform as very essential? And these people who are influenced and who are having interest, how do we widen these people? How do we have people who are champions, rehabilitation champions? How do we curtail them? How do we generate them? And how do we keep expanding people who will continue to become rehabilitation champions is something that we also need to learn. Now, building coalition for reforms is very, very important. Now, mobilizing different groups to provide unified pressure for reforms is very important. Like I said before, if we keep working with as usual, we'll find it difficult to succeed. There are other people who can influence our reforms agenda, like I said, the media, the trade unions, for example, academia, philanthropists, politicians. Now, how do we ensure that we keep working with these people? We build reform, we build coalition with them to help us mobilize for change. Now, and then what are the public sector reforms that may be needed for a reform for an agenda like Rehabilitation 2030? It needs some level of public sector reforms. What are these public sector reforms that are needed? We need to identify. And then we plan to reform to marginalize potential critics for every agenda that you have. Agendas such as this Rehabilitation 2030 agenda, know that you will have a lot of critics. Now, how do you marginalize these potential critics is very, very important. It's one of the tactics also that we need to learn, using political economy analysis. And then how do you manage stakeholders and their own expectations? Because all those stakeholders that you work with, they have their own expectations. So we need to know their own expectations. We need to know their own views, and then how we manage that. Now, I developed some steps for change, recommendations. 3 steps recommendation that I've given are this. One is, as a rehabilitation expert, we need to identify the change we want to achieve. It's extremely important. And 2, we need to create a pathway for the desired change. And the third, the last but not the least, is to define the barriers to change as well as relevant influencers that I have said. What are the barriers to achieving, to helping us to help us, include rehabilitation into universal health coverage. And what are the influences? We need to map that. So in trying to identify the change that we want to achieve, I recommend that also we develop a workshop with the 5 gradual stages towards developing our map to change. One, we need to validate the current context. Where are we now? And I think we have gone far in this. MRTB has done a lot of work on this. It has validated the current context. We look at where we are. There are a lot of pilot work being done. We look at the rehabilitation situation globally. We were able to, to do some, scoping review of where we are. And then 2, the workshop should be able also to agree the desired change that we envisage. This is very important. And the third also for us to identify the barriers to change. For all those the change that are desired, we need to identify the barriers to that change. And then number 4, we develop strategies to achieve the change. And the last but not the least is we have to agree on the next step. Now, this it's normally done in a workshop basis. The activity that is normally done is a workshop to help do this. Creating the pathway for change is also very important because it will tell you where you are with the current situation that you are, for you also to identify or to, the intermediary change that you desire, and then the desired or final change that you also desire. These are, there are more practical things. I'm only giving some theoretical recommendations so that we now think how we. So it's normally 2 or 3 or 4 days workshop that is done to develop all this. And then the last but not the least is, which is extremely important, is identifying influencers using the political economy analysis and the tools. Very, very important. For each actor, for each stakeholder that we identify, we have to identify the likely reasons for why we choose them. We also need to know, is it for, what is some contribution? What is his level of interest? What is his level of influence? Very, very important. So that we also identify who are the blockers, who are the influencers. Very, very important. And then we identify the strategies to mitigate their opposition. For those blockers, we have to devise ways to mitigate their own opposition tactics and their own oppositional strategies. For those people who are for us, for the drivers, we also need to capitalize on their support. We have to continuously engage with them. Those people who are having influence and interest and who are having us at heart, who are really interested in the rehabilitation agenda, we have to capitalize on their support. We have to make them champions. We have to let them know that we are with them, and we have to, keep working with them. And for the bystanders, like I said, those people who are neutral, we have to identify how we can incentivize them so that they support us. Very, very important. So there is a tool that is normally done, like the one that I have recommended here. The change that is desired, who to influence, his name and position. What position is he having? Do we identify him as a blocker or driver or bystander or an ally? Very, very important. And then the third, for each of those change agents, we look at what way to motivate them to support change or make them change position. So thank you very much for listening. I must say that this is quite terrible. The network has made the presentation very, very, very sad for me. And I keep saying, to be honest, this is the worst presentation that I've ever given because of the network issue that I've had. So far, but thank God, this is the 3rd time I'm giving this presentation, and I have included some additions which I had wanted to dwell on them very rigorously and carefully, but the unfortunate network has not given us the opportunity to do that. Maybe in future we will have some, a hitch-free network that will help us do more, or even physically to present in forum. Because I can always say that, to be honest with you, we need to be politically active, and being politically active is a science. A science of doing it is what we lack, to be honest, and the science of doing it has nothing to do but effective stakeholder engagement. And no matter what you do, no matter your passion for stakeholder engagement, if you don't understand political economy analysis, there is no how you'll succeed. Organizations, Even most of the organizations even hire experts to do political economy analysis for them before they do any engagement, before they do any advocacy, because doing advocacy or doing engagement without doing political economy analysis is actually a waste of time. Is sometimes even counterproductive. And this is what, in most of the cases, what we do. We don't tend to work with, we don't tend to study our stakeholders. We don't tend to identify who they are. We don't tend to study them to know their level of influence and interest. We don't map them. We don't identify who they are, and that is why we fail. So I'm sorry, like I said, this is a very haphazard presentation I've given. In fact, I was also even fast so that we can allow people to sleep. So maybe another time I will give a better version of it. Thank you very much for your time and for listening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. You really tried to make use of the time very well. Okay, so now we'll take questions. If you have any question, can you please signify by raising up your hand? You're muted, so you can speak.
Good evening, moderator. Good evening, sir.
Good evening,
Hello.
we can hear you, sir. You can continue.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. But sorry, sir, to open up my or to speak my mind. Sincerely speaking, as a clinician, I find it very difficult to flow together with you with the presentation, because to me it looks more of a administrative issue. However, my question here is, what I get to understand with the presentation is it that we rehabilitation professionals should think should start thinking more of entering or engaging ourselves into politics as well as policy making? That is my question, sir. Thank you very much. I don't know if I'm clear.
Your line is breaking. Sorry, your line is breaking. I can't hear you. Your line is breaking. Yeah.
Okay, should I come again, sir? Hello?
If you can repeat
Hello?
the question, sir.
Yes,
That would
please.
be
Yes.
good.
My question in a nutshell, sir, is that what I get to understand with this presentation is that we rehabilitation professionals should start thinking more, out of just clinical setting. We should start thinking of engaging ourselves into politics as well as policy making. So am I right with this thinking? Thank you very much, sir. I don't know if I'm okay now.
Okay, so I think we lost him. So we're giving some minutes to
Okay,
join back. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems the network is very bad on his side from all indication.
Hello? Hello? Hi.
Welcome back, sir. We can hear you.
It's sad. Hello, I
Hello,
can hear.
sir.
Can
We
you hear
can
me?
hear you. Yes.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Hello, Dara?
Sir,
Yes, I
okay,
can hear. I
Dara
can
is
hear you
not
now. What
currently on
was
the
the
call,
question?
sir, but
Sorry,
we can hear
the
you.
network.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Are you hearing me,
Oh,
sir? Can I come again with my question?
Hello.
Yes, you are audible, sir. Can I come
Yes,
again with my
yes,
question?
yes, yes. Come back. Ask your question.
Okay, sir. So sorry, as I repeat again, as rehabilitation professionals, the aim of this presentation isn't that we rehabilitation professionals should start thinking out of clinical setting by engaging ourselves into politics as well as policy making. So that is my question. Hello, sir.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I'm hearing you, sir.
Yes, I think I've heard you. You want to know whether this lecture as a clinician, how it can help you, right?
Exactly, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that question. You see, the onus of this lecture generally, was given on the premise of leadership and governance. An aspect of
I think we've lost him again. Ouch.
Hi, this network is very, very bad at its end from all indication. Gosh.
I think in that case, maybe I should lower my hand. I don't know. I wanted to ask a question, but then since it has not been easy for him to answer the first one, I don't know. Perhaps I should lower my hand.
Let's just give him some time. He's still on the call, but it seems his network is not connecting. So let's just give him some time to join back in.
the network.
Is it possible for people to also drop their messages on the chat? The question, sorry, on the chat.
Okay, the thing is that if his network will actually permit him to answer those questions while we are still on the call. Okay. So good evening, everyone. It seems the network has really kept him off totally tonight. So what will happen is that if you have a question, please you can drop it on the WhatsApp group. Hopefully we'll get to let him see the questions and then answer them. So in the absence of any other thing, I want to appreciate each and every one of us for making it to today's class. And also there won't be a quiz for tonight. Yeah, so I think that will be all for tonight. PT Dara, do you have anything to say?
Good evening, ma. Good evening, everyone. Okay, I just got off on a call with the facilitator and he's really struggling so hard, but then he's not able to join. So what will happen is that we'll have to end the class at this point, and we'll have to end the class at this point. If he tries again, I told him he should try. If he tries and he's not able to log in again, then we may have to call it a night at this point.
Okay, so are you saying that we should give him some minutes to say if he'll join back?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Like, okay, he's back now.
Okay, sir. We can hear you, sir.
Yes, I said that. Yes, sorry for the network. It's just too sad. Yeah, what I was saying is that the presentation was actually given in an effort, a part of the effort for the Rehabilitation 2030 agenda. So the leadership and the governance aspect of it is when I gave this presentation. The whole idea of the presentation is to ensure that we create the enabling environment. Now, I mean, as rehabilitation professionals, we were actually bedeviled with the limitations of our own, in the scope of our own practice. You realize that despite the fact that rehabilitation is important, despite the unmet need for rehabilitation, despite the fact that we have a role to play in achieving health and well-being as enshrined in the SDGs, despite our efforts, despite the role that we can play in the achievement of universal health coverage, but rehabilitation has not been given the desired, response that we deserve. So unless we are given the enabling environment to work, we'll find it difficult to work. So part of the enabling environment is to ensure that we become part and parcel of this reform agenda. But for us to engage, for us to participate in the primary health care, for us to ensure that we are included in the universal health coverage agenda, there has to be some level of policy change that's necessary for the enabling environment to be created. So understanding this is very important. At the moment that we have a limitation in the scope of practice. So part of what this presentation is given is how we can actually, engage with stakeholders to ensure that we develop this reform agenda that is required, namely inclusion of rehabilitation into the universal health coverage agenda, inclusion of rehabilitation into primary health care, and the wider aspect of so as to achieve the unmet needs for rehabilitation. So it's only some level of like I said, strategy that we give to ensure that we become part and parcel of us. So as a clinician, why it is important to you is because if the enabling environment is not even created for you, you cannot even be employed as a clinician. Now, if you're only employed as a clinician in secondary and tertiary institutions only, there are a lot of physiotherapists who are out there who are unemployed. So creating this kind of policy agenda will increase the physical space for our own interventions, for our own practice, so that we are able to have more and more places that we can actually contribute our own quota to the development of the country. So this is how it relates with you. So in a sense, it's not a clinical presentation, but rather a presentation covering leadership and governance and coordinations toward achieving, toward ensuring that rehabilitation become part and parcel of universal health coverage. More importantly, rehabilitations to be included in primary health care. Thank you. I hope I have answered your question.
Exactly, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, all right. Thanks so much, sir. Dr. Inyukume, you have a question, ma. Do you still want to ask it?
Okay. All right. Since he's back, I think I should just ask the question. All right,
What?
sir. I'm just looking at this WHO 2030 rehabilitation framework, of which we are all parts of this training because of that. I was just wondering, along the levels of political economy analysis, you gave us different levels, the global, the country, and down to the last one. But I just have concerns because even amongst us as primary stakeholders, we are not pursuing a common goal. I don't know how do we solve that problem because I have gone through the framework. I have seen that this is something that WHO said should be global. Then coming down to Nigeria, there those of us that are supposed to be championing
Yeah.
it,
Yes, I agree with
we
you. We
are
are
not
not on the same
together.
page, largely because
We are
of
not on
some.
the, it was the last conference I attended that opened my eyes to it. We are still not on the same page. So what do we do now? Because if we are divided, there's no way we can now go to the next level, then now catch up with the global level. So I just want you to just throw more lights. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, so what we need to do, like you said, is this still boils down to level of purposeful leadership and coordination, which I think, and one of it is for us to also be informed. I can tell you that even among rehabilitation professionals, a lot of people do not understand the rehabilitation agenda generally. If you ask people what is the rehabilitation agenda for the country, for the state, or for the whatever, a lot of people do not understand. So the most important thing that is for us to be informed, one, and then for the leadership also to ensure that there is a purposeful and deliberate effort to ensure that there is coordination, there is cooperation, and there is also unity, for purpose. How do we have a unity for purpose? It's only if you understand the agenda ahead of us. So this kind of training that we are having is part of it's part of the leadership. A response to that, for people to be informed about the rehabilitation agenda, and then at the end of the day, also we have to develop next step. So developing the next step has to be also concrete. It has to be deliberate about how do we now work together. It must come with modalities for cooperation. It must come for modalities for unity and for a common purpose, which I think both MRTB and other professional bodies, kept pursuing. And I think we are on the right track, only that we need to do more. We need to do more at making sure that all those dichotomies that divide us, actually, we remove them, and to ensure that, people are informed of any improvement or any issue that needs to be known, for information to be put across to people, so that it's only when people understand what we have, what we are pursuing, only then they can actually buy into the whole policy agenda that I'm talking about. So it still boils down to issues of leadership. It still boils down to the level of collaboration, issues of cooperation, and then working together. And for professional bodies generally, including MRTB, to continue to engage people and to also engage the wider stakeholder that I talked about. In rehabilitation, we tend to be locked off, in a certain, corner. We have to expand our own horizons. We need to develop friendship from people even outside us, who are, identify champions, identify allies that we are going to continue working with, so that they help us also champion most of the issues that we alone cannot, achieve. And within the system is for the leadership to continue as much as possible to ensure that there is unity of purpose, to ensure that when there are issues that can bring conflict, and those issues are dealt with amicably and professionally. I think these are some of the issues that are some of the things that we need to do. But by and large, to be honest with you, is for people to be informed. I can tell you that most of the rehabilitation professionals are not informed about the happenings. So we also need to understand the politics of healthcare also. and to understand beyond our own arms also, what are the things that lies us. We cannot be separate from the larger horizon. We need to understand the institutions that we work with. We need to identify the stakeholders that are important in working with us, and we need to sit down and deliberate our own problems if there are, so that we can amicably resolve them. These are some of the tips that I've just give us the takeaway on how we continue to prosper. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, sir, for answering the questions and trying so hard to actually come back and finish the class. Thank you so much for your tenacity. I know network can be frustrating, but thank you for always trying to come back to finish
Thank
up.
you.
Really appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you. Sorry for the frustrations of the network. So
It's
I have to
fine, sir.
apologize.
Totally understand. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
In the absence of any other question, I think we'll call it tonight. Yeah, so thank you so much, everyone. There won't be quiz tonight today, so
Thank you.
don't bother asking
All
for
right.
it.
Bye.
All right, sir. Bye. All right.
Okay, good night, everybody. Thank you, facilitating.
Thank you so
very
much.
much, sir.
Good
Good night,
night,
everybody.
everyone. Thank
It was
you.
interesting.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.